Okay, well, wonderful. Welcome, everybody. We still got more folks joining us, and they will continue to. We are in for a fantastic evening night featuring the wisdom of second-generation herbalist, the Herbal Jedi, Yarrow Willard, founder, formulator of Harmonic Arts, also the director at the Wild Rose College. So it's a pleasure and honor to hear from you tonight, Yarrow. I know we're going to be diving deep into the world of herbs and mushrooms for immunity. So maybe go ahead, if you can. I'll try and do it on my end. We'll just mute everybody for now, just to kind of minimize the background noise. And then we'll kind of move forward from there. So you go ahead and mute everybody. And
all right. I will leave you on for muting yourself, Malcolm.
Okay.
And those of you who are not muted, just try to mute yourself. You're welcome to leave your screen on or off. Now that I'm spotlighted, you can be on there. It is nice to see each other. I really love that about being able to see you all, whether it's eating food, hanging out, whatever. If not, no big deal. There is a little option here, and I'm going to just, in the bottom, I'm just going to give a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. In the bottom, there is a reaction section where you can actually like raise your hand. You see how my hand is raised now? If you really want to ask a question or jump in, try to do the reaction thing. I will be able to see it. But then there's also other reactions, like I can do a thumbs up. The raise hand stays right up unless you unload it. Or I can say, I like that, Yarrow. That's really deep, big hearts. Or I can say, oh my God, you are hilarious, but no thanks, Yarrow. Just kidding. So play with your reactions if you want, and lower your hand when you're done. But I will definitely try to answer any questions in that way. The other thing I want to just say, just getting going, is you will get a recording of this. So if for any reason you're having any troubles, I see that Carol can't hear. Oh, she can hear everyone. All right, great. Zoom options are working. If you have any issues like that, put them in the chat. If you are not, if you're muted, I am just going to mute you. I'm just going to mute you if I see that. But I will unmute you, or you can ask to be unmuted when you have a question. So just getting going. I'm going to start in about 2 minutes. I want to just let the last couple of people in, because we've got people like, looks like Denny here, who is late. He's on BC time. I don't know what's with that guy. Just kidding. But first off, I asked already, but in the chat, if you can light up the chat with some kind of comment, so we know you can do the chat. The chat is a place where you are able to ask questions, chat with each other, have a conversation. My first question was, what's your favorite herb for the immune system? And my second question is going to be, what's your favorite product at the cellar? If you could chat with that. This is just the most amazing store. I want to just give a big shout out to the Light Cellar and all that they do. They are an oasis in the, I'll say, the Elderberry desert. They bring nourishment at a really deep and fundamental level. They also are a business with a philosophy of people first and getting to the heart of the matter of what's important, which is our nutrition. So the way the Light Cellar has been kind of forging the road ahead, really supporting a deep level of nourishment for the mind through talks like this, through their educational setup inside of the light, also through nourishing for the body, through the way that they support with nutrition and food, and nourishing for the soul through just being able to be a place for community, for people to come and chat health, for all the things like the fermentation festival that they help produce, for the herb walks and the different things they do. Just want to be a big shout out to the Light Cellar. What's your favorite product that they carry? And just want to say thank you, Malcolm and community, for hosting me. I believe your time is your most valuable resource. So enough with the intros. We're going to get right into it here. And I just really want to give appreciation to you for spending this next 7 hours with no bathroom break with me. Oh, I'm just kidding. Won't be 7 hours. And you're locked in that room and you can't leave. You can't escape. Just kidding. Just turn your video off and pretend like you're listening when you're not. I get it. It's okay. It's Zoom. But with that, tonight's topic is about herbs for the immunity, and herbs and mushrooms for the immune system. Now, we're only going to go through a few herbs, and we're going to do a little bit more of a high-level immune system support. and what that really looks like. What is our immune system? Where are we're going with that? Knowing that these times, especially in this turbulent time where the world's flipped upside down, here we are on Zoom. I've mostly done classes at the Light Cellar for years in person, really love the community there, and am sad that I don't get to be with you in person right now. But just know that as things have flipped upside down, our immune system becomes even more important to understand properly, so we can have the best resilience. And our immune system isn't just like what we understand as the immune system. And I'll go through some of the different parts of the immune system, but in a way, just like a lot of people have talked about mushrooms already in the chat, just like mushrooms are the mycelial layer, that interwoven wood wide web that holds all the plants and all of the animals and all of the communities together in this kind of fabric of communication network, like the internet of the natural world. It acts like the immune system. And so it is the immune system of our planet. And so many of these mushrooms obviously help with our immune system, but this whole concept from a micro to macro level lens is that the immune system is this overarching organization of wisdom channels to keep us fortified and healthy. If you go to any old world culture, you'll see that most of the disease that they think of is often a spiritual attack or an evil wind or some kind of external force, aka pathogen, getting through our envelope. So your immune system, before we even get into like the nitty gritty of the physiology of the immune system, think of it as your biofilm, as your envelope around you. And it's everything from your psyche to your diet, to your physical well-being, to the way you emotionally perceive yourself and the external world. So the drains, and I'll call it the drainbows on us sometimes, are all of these external things we can't change. There's a lot of things in the world you can't change right now. And the only way to really make a change is to make a change internally within ourselves and the way we show up. And so that's where we need to put our focus. And if we put our focus too much, and I'm just starting with this because it's kind of the high level piece to me that's really important in the world right now, is when we put our energy too far out of our own physical domain, it becomes little leaky pockets sucking out our chi, sucking out our spirit into things like, let's just say, for example, right now in BC, we're at the 100-year flood time. I know Alberta had that, or Calgary had that. Malcolm literally had to evacuate his house once for that. But we have a 100-year flood happening right now, where all of Chilliwack and Abbotsford is, well, huge parts of Abbotsford are underwater. The highways have been closed. Gas on the island is at an all-time like crazy place where we're limited. We can't actually fill up our tank. And there's scarcity, and there's all this mentality around like, oh my gosh, people going to the stores. It's not toilet paper this time, it's dairy products and animals being shipped out of the interior BC or out of different parts in order to help them survive, because we're losing thousands of cattle and all these farms and homesteads. This is huge stuff happening in BC. If I take my energy and start like driving into the wormholes of, oh my gosh, look at all this catastrophe, and I just start to ebb and erode at what I'm actually doing personally, internally, I'm robbing myself in what's I would call a bit of a against wisdom to fortify my own nourishment. It's easy for me to get sick when I start to go down the spiral of all these things. I can't do anything right now about the floods. So what can I do? What I can do, my own psyche, take time to nourish myself, to go on walks, to feel into how appreciative I am. If I can donate, of course I can do that kind of thing. And of course I can try to lend a helping hand, but not a helping hand. What are other people's battles, and therefore rob ourselves of our own chi? And so I just wanted to start with this kind of understanding that your immune system is not just what we're going to talk about tonight, but that it is your psychic chi as well. And there's so much going on in the world that it's easy to let your immune system get compromised by putting it outside of yourself. And so that's just something that has been huge for me in recognizing in myself as we go through turbulent times, and in knowing that a lot of us are robbing ourselves of our best energy by divorcing ourselves from the real self, by nourishing the envelope of all sides. So we'll get into some of that, but let's start with our screen share and get into our course. Today is herbs and mushrooms for resilience and immunity. And I think of this year, my overarching word is being rekindle. This has been my mantra of the year, is to rekindle the self. And that means to build this fire back to a strong flame. And starting from the smoldering embers of who I am, have been building up and reminding myself as a mantra to rekindle. But my secondary mantra this year has been resilience. As we build into a new world, we need to be resilient to be able to show up for our best selves. There's no one else that is there for us the way we can be there for ourselves. And so it's really important not to even take my word for any of this, but to build your immune path that way, from where your most resiliency comes from. So I just want to give this reminder. And we're going to talk about the immune system tonight. We're going to talk about some herbs for the immune system, some different ways in which we can support our immune system. And I'll start with just kind of looking at this physiological level. But as I mentioned already, you are this highly sophisticated, emotional as well as physical. These sort of four bodies, not to get too esoteric, but understanding that they all overlap each other and they all affect each other. So the story I give about what's happening in Chilliwack or in Abbotsford and the gas crisis and the scarcity, this is affecting the immune system of everyone in the Vancouver area and everyone on Vancouver Island right now. And it's actually compromising at a huge psychic level, a lot of immune function for a lot of people, because it's a psychic attack. It's the evil wind, so to speak, from the classic shamanic path of many cultures. These things come into our lives. We all have them. I mean, especially this time of year, I'm sure a lot of you are feeling it. November is that time when the seasons have shifted down, though it gets darker, the veils have come, and we're just trying to peel back the layers. The best thing you can do for your immune system right now is to nourish. We're moving into what's called kidney season in Chinese medicine, to nourish the kidney qi. We're moving out of what's called lung season. So September is the lung season in Chinese medicine. If you are not muted, please mute yourself.
Is he the father? Is he the man? Or is he?
Sorry, okay, awesome. If you're unmuted and speaking, yeah, do that. Otherwise, I have to stop my screen share to unmute you with my God power, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so obviously the Chinese medicine wheel moves around this cycle of all the seasons, and I mentioned lung season is fall. That's when people start to get sick, and this beginning of this time comes. That's when surface attacks happen, right? So surface level immune system is really at the foremost in the early September as the seasons shift. As we move into November and into December, we get into deeper level immune system. So looking in this slide is not really all that I'm talking about right now, a little bit, and you can look at our surface level immune system we're going to get into next, but looking at the tonsils and the lungs in that area, that's where we are in the fall. As we move into kidney qi season, which is where we're at now, it's about nourishment. So bone broths and deep tonic soups and tonic herbs are these deep level immune nourishment that we need to go to at this time of year. Tonight, what I had for dinner was, well, we did a nice big broth. We've been making broth lately. It's that season. And then we've got a few cauliflowers left. So we cooked up cauliflower. We threw in a lot of spices to that broth. We ended up using fresh sprigs of thyme, because thyme and some of these spices are also to ward off all the essential oils and spices like rosemary and thyme, or to ward off evil wind. I keep saying that, but it's like to ward off the pathogens, to keep the surface protected. So adding some of those spices are actually ways not just of digesting the food better, but improving the gates of your castle. This slide doesn't necessarily show it, but think of your body as the castle in this metaphor, and what your idea of with much of the foods and the exercise. Maybe I'll move to the next slide. I apologize for not really taking much time. I'll talk more about deep level immune system and surface level immune system, but the analogy I'd like to give is you are fortifying the body with deep level and protecting the body at with your guard. So if I think of the body as a castle, think of deep level immune system like the lymphatics and the bones and the deep lungs as as if things get into that area, that's when it's further into our castle. And so the point of most deep immune stuff is to protect the moat, build the walls, protect the castle, whereas surface immune is more like putting archers on the gate to protect against the horde, or to actually when pathogens are coming in. So our surface level is all of our touch points. It's all of our entry points into our body. We have surface immune even in our ears. You know, as you go in, like every point you can get into the body, there's immune protective cells at those gates. Another piece of that is right when you go through the digestive tract into the stomach acid. That is a huge part of your surface level immune system. So something people don't realize is that if they've got indigestion and hypoacidic stomach, say they get heartburn and they don't digest their food well, or they don't chew fast enough and their stomach acid is weak, that's going to affect your immune system. That's going to actually stop your immune system from being as responsive. Another thing to think about is your skin health. What is the microbiome of your skin? Are you using too many sanitizers and shampoos all the time? Are you scrubbing off all of the good pathogens? Now, it's good to keep clean, but one of the issues with the whole COVID protocols that we've come into is it's just like anything, without a full level of education, it's really easy to have a crime against wisdom. And that is when we just hand sanitize and sterilize all the time. And when people are told that it's pathogens that are the enemy, therefore you need to keep protected from those by sterilizing all the time, you actually compromise your good flora and fauna. So you need, if that's the case, say you work in an environment where you need to put hand sanitizer on every day, are you doing something to rebuild that, right? Are you replenishing that? Are you nourishing that back? Can you go down from soap all the time to soap only when needed and only in places when needed? Not, you know, and this is something that maybe we can do at home if we're not working in office culture anymore. Maybe we can have a little less showers. And I'm not saying be a stinky hippie here. I'm saying your microbiome is a huge level of your resilience and protection. This is what actually protects you. And we've said this in webinars, and Malcolm's probably alluded to this in many different formats before, but you are more other organisms by cell count than you are human. You are an ecosystem. And like any other ecosystem, regulation and self-regulation and self-modification comes from system stability. So the more diverse the system, the more balanced it becomes. So a forest with multiple types of trees and multiple types of flora and fauna is much stabler than a forest of one tree, right? It can handle all kinds of environments. So just like that, think of your body as the same way. You're more ecosystem than you are human. And the 10,000 foot soldiers that line your gut and line your skin, they are your real immune system. Your backup is your deep immune. So your bone marrow, your lymphatic system, your appendix, your tonsils, those are all backup immune. It's really the biome on top of that is your true immune system. So how do you protect this, build this? Many of the things we're going to talk about in general, and just really basic nutrition 101 is about building the microbiome. It's about building up the real immune system. So a symptom of a surface level immune system really is pathogens at the front door: coughs, cold, tickly throat. Sometimes it's actually a stomach flu, can be a surface level immune system. So you get even like dysentery of some form is still really surface level. And even things like when you get a headache is often a surface level immune system response. In a lot of times, sometimes light pains and chills can all be surface level. But where you get into deep immune issues is when it becomes that deep chronic bronchitis, or it comes into a low lethargic immune response, tired all the time, groggy, not enough energy, consistently compromised in this way, becomes a deeper level thing. And there's lots of things we can do for that. And so we're going to work with some of those. I've got a few herbs in here. Astragalus mushrooms, elecampane, are at deep level immunity, whereas like Echinacea, Goldenseal, Ooznia, those are some of the ones, oil of oregano, surface level immune system, right? So know what herb works for what part. If you are dealing with a surface level immune system issue, it's not mushrooms, right? Mushrooms are amazing, but they replenish and nourish the body's immune system. They support it. And I'm a huge believer in the medicinal mushrooms, but know that they are for fortifying the castle. They are for building the microbiome up. They are not for dealing with pathogens at the gate. You know, you can't, I mean, despite like maybe chaga, for example, if you drink a lot of chaga, the antioxidants in there are going to be fighting pathogens, and there's lots of antibacterial compounds in many of the mushrooms, but know that their main job is to fortify and educate your immune system. You can't be putting your immune system through college education when there's a horde of pirates at the door, or when the Mongolian horde is coming in and pillaging the villages. You can't be in the schoolyard. You've got to be on guard, and that means you need allies that are what we call single directional herbs that work in a specific way in one direction. And those are often stimulants. You want to stimulate the immune system at that point. The other thing to think about is our immune system is very sophisticated. And when it's turned on, well, it becomes a police nation state, AKA the white blood cells rule, the immune system becomes like overarching sometimes. And what happens is sometimes we get the immune system turned on too hard for the wrong things based on bad leaky gut stuff or other kinds of issues that come into creating allergens in the system, toxins in the system, overload of stress in the system, and the immune system flips on itself and you get autoimmune cascades. And that's when the immune system's overfiring. So you can't be using stimulants, so surface level immune herbs, during an overfiring immune state. This is when these deep level things become much more beneficial. So we'll get into that a little bit tonight, but just as a thing to understand when you're looking at your herbs, and just for clarity, like a lot of the actual herbs you can work with in the immune system, you can Google them, you can find tons of information on them. The main job for me, hopefully tonight, is to remind you of what to think about, to research, and to look for. And that is understanding the difference between the pathology of a surface level attack versus a deep immune support, right? Okay, we got one more person who needs to mute. FYI, oh, I can do it from here. Ha ha ha. All right, great. So let's see, muting that person. Okay, great. All right, so just kind of going into this, whoopsie, it makes me do that. How do we basically support the immune system overall? And remember, it's either deep or surface we're working with. Most of these things are things we're going to do for deep level nourishment. These are things we can intuitively do. And I see one person maybe taking their phone to take a picture. Yes, awesome. Take a picture of the slides if you want, but know that you also are going to get an email with this recording and this slideshow. So you'll get all these notes in the handout. So just letting you know, it is important. I'll say we don't really learn things until we learn them 4 to 7 times. So if you write it down and you see me talk about it and you look at the slideshow, now you're getting closer to remembering it in a way. So just some deep level, some stuff to think about when we're supporting our immune system is, are we getting adequate enough sleep? It's really easy in the modern world to not get adequate enough sleep. I know me, I have this little pocket god. And even just now, it sent me like 4 notifications in the last little bit. And I'm like, oh, it's so easy to be distracted. We often, a lot of us don't deal with all of our psychic debris in the day. And so we're dealing with it in our sleep cycle. And we often, if you look at people's sleep, a lot of people aren't getting into deep sleep. They're spending a lot of time still processing their day. So one of my invitations is an evening ritual, and something that you can really do simply. This is the simplest evening ritual I know. Obviously, starting with like not stimulating yourself with a whole bunch of screens and exciting, and maybe not gambling online all night long until 4 a.m. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think anybody, hopefully nobody here does that, but not getting stimulated at nighttime, right? But the second, this is the ritual I have, and I think it's really useful. And it's write down 5 things you appreciate about today, really simply, and it'll help you unpack your day in a very holistic and intuitive way that doesn't have you focus on the negative and spiral into the stuff that's no good. So 5 things you appreciate about today. And that might be something simple like, wow, you know what? I caught every light on the way to work, or that bowl of oatmeal with the sauerkraut in it and the nutritional yeast and the soy sauce and the hemp oil that Yarrow told me is good for my immune system. I tried that and it was really good. Maybe that was what you appreciate today. Making super tonic oatmeal for yourself, or your kids came home from school and they were actually in a good mood instead of like school sucks or something, you know, whatever it is. 5 things you appreciate. And then one feeling you want to feel tomorrow when you wake up. So I'll say that again. One of my favorite evening rituals is 5 things you appreciate about the day and one thing you want to feel when you wake up, one feeling. This is a really nice way of setting up for success for the next day, I found. But if you don't get adequate enough sleep, know that the human body was not designed to live by the laborer's calendar of 9 to 5 work hours and specific dinners and meal times at specific times. We've designed that in order to fit into a modern world where, rather than working for ourselves, working our land, working our life, which we do more intuitively if we're up to our own, we're governed by a system that allows us to fit into the order of the world. And there's nothing right, nothing wrong with that. But just know that your body's not designed for that. So have cat naps if you can. Rest, take shavasana periods. Slow down your energy during the day. Take time to breathe deep, to slow down, right? Take a little bit of like cultivate some kind of self-care routine that is a down regulator, right? What are you doing to down regulate the upregulation time? The other thing is, what are you doing to upregulate? It's important to get exercise, to move that body. If you have a computer job or you spend time doing things like this, can you get one of these, like, I'll say a giant ball to bounce up and down on while you're doing your computer work? Can you actually like do that and start to move your body? Like, okay, I'm like actually doing something to move my lymphatic system. Huge issues in the world right now with people in sitting positions constantly for large periods of time. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like the heart. It requires you to move the body to do all these things, to actually move your body in order to pump around your lymph. So immune system compromisation right there. If you can get your heart regulating or up to a certain amount of beats per minute, like Dre and his beats per minute, no, just kidding, then do that. Make sure you get some kind of good fast-paced walk-in, bike ride, run, something that you can do, even if it's just heavy lifting, something that's actually going to make you breathe heavy and get your heart rate moving. This is a huge way of cleansing and clearing stuff. So it's not just taking herbs. One of the problems I find that people run into, what do we got for? Uh-oh.
I want to go on the UC athletics.
I get this. I'm going to get you. I hear you.
Volleyball games.
I don't know where you are. Somebody unmute. Mute yourself before we have a mutiny on the deck here. Okay. So making sure that you're breathing, making sure that you're getting adequate sleep, make sure that you're moving. These are just simple things you can do. Making sure that you're taking a down regulating process, and then look at food and herbs. The biggest issue I see is that a lot of people treat their immune system and immune regulation just like we've been trained to treat the medical system, where it's like, fix me because you can diagnose and figure out what's wrong with me. And that's just the wrong approach. That's not how nature works. There's not like a deer in the woods that goes, oh, you know, a mushroom shaman, come and save me because I don't know what's wrong with me. They have to figure it out. And so I would invite you to do some of the depth of figuring out and supporting yourself that way before you look to herbs as magic bullets. There are lots of great herbs, but herbs aren't magic bullets. What they do is they teach you how to support yourself. The true healer and the true healing of the system is you. You are the true immune system. I have this saying, be the adaptogen. You are the adaptogen. It is not the herbs. They might teach you the wisdom of their own adaptogenic patterns and the way they show up and how they support their immune system. But think of it as an education always, not as a savior coming in to save me, right? This is the wrong approach that's often been, I'll say, touted in our world. We've been marketed this message over and over again around the hero coming in and saving the day, or the doctor coming in and treating the cancer, or the spiritual ayahuasca tear coming in and solving my addiction, or the like priest coming in and praying over my soul. Whatever it is, putting the power outside of yourself will always put you last. It'll always put you at the bottom of the food chain. Putting the power back inside of yourself will always put you first. And so it's just a really simple way of be the adaptogen, be the flexitarian, be the opportunivore, and gobble up all the knowledge from all the different places. But then remember that it's you that is doing the actual healing work, right? You are the healer. Your body knows how to do all this stuff. It's super intelligent. It's just giving it the right teachers and tools. Okay, so what are some of those? Well, obviously, besides like daily activities, movement, sleep, this part, another huge part of this is something called waxing and waning. My favorite process: detox and build, cleanse, build, cleanse, build. Set yourself up for success, just like a moon does. It sets itself up for success every month. It waxes and wanes. It goes through this cycle. The seasons go through this cycle. Your day goes through this cycle. Remember that you're a cyclic being of circles upon circles. You are concentric rings of all of these layerings and nuances, right? Including the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. You've also got nuances of cycles. So in a day, I've mentioned a bit of that cycle. There's something called an ultradian cycle, which is a 90-minute cycle. You only have 90 minutes to actually do any one activity before you drift off or get out of flow state. So set yourself up on these 90-minute cycles at the most for any activity you're doing, and then switch it up. Go for that walk or move that body or change it up. You'll never get more effective than 90 minutes. On a daily level, are you setting yourself up? Think of the yin and the yang. So you have a nighttime as your yin nourishment of sleep, but do you have a little dot in the middle of the yang that is also that yin in the middle of your day? Do you have a shavasana? So set yourself up with a shavasana time like that in the middle of your day. So give yourself some relaxing time. But then also, that's a daily level. On a lunar cycle, you can set yourself up really simply with, as the moon waxes, it's a building cycle. As it goes from new moon to full moon, it's a building cycle. So that's when we want to be building up and giving ourselves extra building nourishment. When it goes from full moon to new moon is when we are cleansing. That's when the natural cycles are ebbing off. So doing a detox, doing a cleanse might be something along the lines, even if it's just a simple, like, I'm going to cut out sugar for these 2 weeks because they're my cleansing weeks. But sugar is actually not the enemy. Sugar is a builder. It supports calorie content, which literally gives you energy. You convert all your food into sugar at some point down the biochemical pathway in order to use it. Well, the problem is giving an addict a whole bunch of cash on payday and it spends it all. That's what really most sugar in the diet is you end up spending the cash really fast. So it either goes into fat cells or goes into lack of focus energy and feeds the candida. So that's all bad. We don't want to do that. So we do need fibrous foods, quality diet of like things that are going to be slow to digest, things that will ferment in our system, not too much. Obviously, we don't want to smell up Zoom here, not too much fermentation, but you get the idea is that we want to, the slower we absorb something, the more we actually can pull out of it and the better we can regulate the energy that comes off of it. Right. So adding fiber, making sure you get the skins of the broccoli and the carrots and the yams and stuff like that, adding all those bits, that all feeds the microbiome. And so diet wise, I love to do a cleanse and build cycle on a lunar cycle, not every month, but I will attempt to start a cleanse. And even if it's a spiritual cleanse, let's just say I am going to cut out, I'm going to take myself from 8 hours of screen time a day down to 4 hours of screen time a day and replace at least one of those hours with nature time a day. Wow, that's a huge cleanse. That's a spiritual cleanse to go and spend an hour in nature every single day and cut out half your screen time. Can you do that? that would be something I would want to do during a cleansing cycle, starting from a full moon intention to a new moon, right? Maybe another one is an emotional cleanse. I want to do, and all these will support your immune system. I want to actually support my immune system by reaching out to the people I care about that have been there for me and making an effort to join, to witness them, to track them, to know that, to help them know they are supported in this life and that I see them. I'm going to make that an effort, and I'm going to do that in my building phase, right? Because so think of the building phase as that new moon intention to full moon. What is that? That's building your microbiome. That's building your community. That's building your energy. When we look at best time to throw an event, it's as you build up to the full moon. It's when you want to be, when we get more excited, we want to be in community. So I'm trying to bridge this from a few different sides here, is that your immune system is not just this whole diet piece. And I could easily just take this time to hack apart the best things about diet, but I will say you can Google that too in like 5 seconds. You can find all the best foods for your diet in like 5 seconds. What is more important to me is that you understand that doing these processes of going through waxing and waning, stretching and releasing, is super important to the whole thing on all these levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So you do you and figure out what that looks like, but just think about, for ideal tuning to the cycle, building is from new moon to full moon to new moon is cleansing. And so that might be a cleansing diet. You got it. The other thing is there's also a yearly cycle. And the yearly cycle that's really important is to look at the transition seasons. The year works into 4 buckets, supposedly. We have 4 seasons. Chinese medicine actually has 5 seasons, but we'll stick with the 4 seasons of the 4 directions of this, unceded First Nations territory that we live on, and also the 4 directions of I'll call it the Druidic or Celtic cross. For any of the Northern European descendants, that is your ancestry. Is all about these midhaven points of transition. So we think of winter solstice, summer solstice, the equinoxes and the solstices as the points. The other points on the season are the midhavens between them. So think of Halloween. Halloween is Samhain, or the Day of the Dead. It is a midhaven that mixes with May 1st, right? May Day. So you might have heard of May Day before, the maypole, that's a ceremony that is actually the true half point. The true half point of the year is not when fall transit, like December 21st, they say that's winter. Well, we live in Canada. I'm sure some of you know it's winter already in some ways, but the midhavens are those transitions. So I really love to do this like seasonal alignment at the midhavens, almost more than the solstice and winter, like to count my chips and check off my boxes at Halloween. At that Day of the Dead, I can go back into my, not just ancestry, but into my like psyche of, at some level, I'm about to enter the death phase. For the next 6 months, I'm in the declining phase of the year. So I am peeling off what no longer serves me. I am cleansing my spiritual hygiene. I am going insular into myself. I'm not going into community as much. I'm doing my deep work, right? During that time. So deep nourishment starting at Halloween on is so important to set yourself up for success, right? As the wisdom of the body intuitively wants this. It wants you to peel off a few of those onion layers and go deep. Have a wood fire if you got, have some tea, just nourish up, and don't worry about this outward facing stuff. Because what'll happen is May will come around, May 1st, and all of a sudden you are gung-ho, you got all the garden plans, you got all the like ideas and ambitions of the world. The seasons are getting lighter. You got energy coming out the yin yang. You can do 1,000 things in a day. You're working from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and you're still feeling topped up, right? Like you can do it in that season, but in the winter, give me a break. Like you cannot function that way. I can't function that way. I'll burn myself out, and crime against wisdom will create some form of autoimmune cascade or cancer or some deep level chronic imbalance because I'm out of flow. I am not surfing the proverbial wave. of the season. So the midhavens are really important, that midhaven in particular of Halloween and there. And then the other part is to look at, as you transition through, there's two other seasons that are really important, and it's spring and fall. It's when the seasons actually shift. So when the energy outside is shifting, the reason that the flu vaccine, I don't want to talk about the other vaccine, I just don't even get me going on that one. But the reason why the flu vaccine has always been marketed to people in September as back to school, make sure you're topped up, for decades now, is because that is, they actually intuitively know that, or not maybe not intuitive, it's broken down to science. This is when immune pathology really kicks in. When we start to get sick is in September, where the back to school is just part of it, but it's actually about the leaves falling and the seasons transitioning and everything being shaky in the environment. That's when we want to start our immune protocols, or we want to do a cleanse of some form. So, and then spring, when everything just starts to sprout up, those first little buds, the first little sprouts, that's when we want to do our cleanse. So these two times that I would do a major cleanse is in the spring and the fall as a top up. And for me, because I live on the West Coast, that typically is my spring cleanse is typically in March, and my fall cleanse is typically in October. I try to do between Thanksgiving and Halloween. That's my fall cleanse usually, where I totally strip the diet down, take a bunch of herbs to really cleanse the body, similar to the Wild Rose Detox. And those just twice a year, just doing 2 cleanses a year, it will enhance your immune system tenfold, far more than Echinacea is ever going to do for you. Those just doing 2 cycles like that a year. So in Alberta, when I lived there, it was more intuitively September, and I guess it'd be like late March kind of thing, early April. April and September is really where I would do in that season, because that's when the seasons are really shifting. So be governed by the world around you as part of your strategy for building wisdom in your body. And that's, I guess, I took a long time to say that. That's all I really needed to say, was let the wisdom of nature, because you are nature, flow through you in the way you choose to approach your healthy lifestyle. Okay, so that was just cleansing and detoxing. Overstress and burnout, it really comes down to the fact that we often find ourselves fighting the proverbial tiger, the proverbial saber-toothed tiger. If you find yourself in overwhelm or anxiety or stress, take a few breaths, find something to just walk away for a minute. Just do that. Just do that for yourself. Stress is the biggest killer right now. One of them, that and nature deficit disorder. Get into nature. That eat local foods, eat fermented foods, try to incorporate small amounts of wild foods. It doesn't have to be your entire diet, but if you can incorporate a tiny bit of wild, even like close to 1% of wild, or get into the earth. There's huge science now around putting your hands in soil, how much that increases your immune system. It makes you happier. It makes you energetically more available for your spiritual health. It works with, depression, anxiety, but it also just getting your hands in the soil or your feet in the soil. Can you wash your face in the spring, even in the Bow River? Like I swear, every time I go to Calgary, you know what I do? First thing I do is I nibble on this weird little plant in there. There's like I call it, I think it's like the smokers corridor at the Calgary airport. And it's like the only nature. They made this like beautiful little nature spot. And it's like, it's like the only outdoor thing. You know what I do is I go in there, I don't have a smoke, but I go in there and I just nibble on the little juniper that's in there. I'm like, or I nibble on one of the leaves, and it just tunes me to the Alberta weather for a second. And then the next thing I do, if I have more than an hour, is I go to Nose Hill. And Nose Hill to me is this super power spot in Alberta or in Calgary anyway, that overlooks the whole downtown and it's like this overarching immune view. And I wander for a few minutes, and that in itself tunes me to Alberta and makes my immune system more savvy for this climate again. So can you do something like that for yourself once in a while? When you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, is to get out, nibble on the wild, And I'm not saying eat huge volumes of juniper berries and uva ursi leaves and things that are not totally food, but nibble on it and reacclimatize just know that that affects your microbiome, supports all that. Fermented foods, obviously, if you did the Calgary Fermentation Festival, you know a little more about the prebiotic function of fermented foods. It's not just the probiotics. It's the setup for success. Just like anything with the ecosystem, we want to build good soil, good permaculture gut design. And I could go all day on just what permaculture gut design really looks like. But a huge part of that is those wild foods, is that waxing and waning of detox and cleansing, and is eating prebiotic foods. And what are prebiotics? They're basically fiber. They're super simple. They're like celery, and they're yam skins and broccoli, and they're lettuce, and they're every kind of fibrous bit that you're going to get in your food. That's what feeds your microbiome for the most part. Medicinal mushrooms, just for a quick shout out and love to them, they become master prebiotics because of the branched polysaccharides that are huge, massive molecules. They help to calm down inflammation in the microbiome layer and then become these master prebiotics that set up food for success to be assimilated by the biosphere inside of us. So I consider them one of the things people will look at all the benefits of the immune system for mushrooms. The biggest one by far is actually that they set you up with low inflammation in the gut, therefore allowing your immune system to thrive in its true form, which is your microbiological health. That's your real immune system. The reason chronic imbalances have become a huge thing of our time and deep immune issues is really because our microbiome health is totally out of whack, and we're not educating that very well with the foods we're eating. But enough about that. That means basically avoid a lot of the processed foods and all those things. Okay, wow, that was a lot of time for one slide. So like I said, 7 hours. You guys ready? No bathroom breaks. None. Okay, just kidding. So let's talk about a couple of herbs. There's so much more, right? The immune system is a huge topic. We could spend, like I say, we could spend a full day just trying to dive in to ways to strategize. If I can just give one last synopsis of all of that, it's that it's so much more than just these herbs for the immune system, right? It's so much more. It's layers and layers of your onion. And it has to do with all those aspects of yourself. And think of you as the adaptogen. You are the healer. You have to heal and work on your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health in order to really support your immune system, truly. Okay. First one is obviously Echinacea. This is I'll call it, this is the staple, the signature of immune system health. You know, in the early 80s, this got put into the Commission E German monograph as the first ever super immune system stimulant. And it became really popular in the 80s. When we lived in Alberta, my father and I lived out in Springbank, so just outside of Calgary, and we had an Echinacea farm. We had about 3 acres of Echinacea growing. Beautiful, beautiful plant. Powerful in the way it shows up, the way it looks, it's just regal and royal. It looks like a strong immune system. The spikes on the top of the cone flower they say protection. Like this plant says protection. You know, you try to touch that, it's like, ooh, ah, ee. Whereas you touch a sunflower, it's like, ooh, you know, it's nice and soft. Or calendula. They're all in this Compositae family. But Echinacea has this spiky robustness, and it loves Alberta cold. It just loves it. The colder the weather, the more polyphenols that Echinacea produces in its root systems. So this is Echinacea purpurea, but the one that grows best in Alberta is Echinacea and Gustifolia. And that is the most, the most stimulating immune root, one of the most stimulating immune roots we know. What I like to think of Echinacea is as a master immune system chief. So when we build formulas, I think of Echinacea as a chief. It's not the best at any one thing, but it is the best at organizing the whole immune system response, at kind of overseeing it. It's the project manager, we'll say, for more technical in hip words. It's not chief, right? That's almost cultural appropriation again or something. I don't know. I'm not even, that whole lens to me is sort of, I'm lost in the world of he's and she's and us's and we's. But I do know that this concept of a project manager or of a chief or chieftain or an empress or a queen, whatever it is what Echinacea really embodies. This leader in the immune system support. So I love to put it in as a top herb in the formulas. It turns on the macrophages, white blood cells. It builds out that whole, let's get the immune system stimulated and going, which means it's super good for pathogens as well. So Echinacea is not just for immune, it's good for like toothaches and gum health, and it's good for pain. It's antibacterial. You can put it on like for numbing pain, eat Echinacea seeds or chew on an Echinacea root to help with dealing with pain. Even like even wound pain or menstrual pain, Echinacea will help, this kind of response. It also, ironically, it helps with depression and winter blues. So a little bit of Echinacea in the winter is a really great one to calm down depression. So it's not just an immune herb, but by stimulating the immune system, it's firing up the system, and it's kind of overarching protection is what Echinacea is. So I think it's a herb that you should take on a fairly regular basis, provided you are not somebody with major autoimmune stuff going on. And what is that? Someone with fibromyalgia might not be a good Echinacea candidate. Someone with some of those like that or rheumatoid arthritis that is autoimmune in nature might not be. So Echinacea is great. It's something that you can take in low volumes consistently throughout the winter months. I like to pair Echinacea with vitamin C, just really simply, super strategy, easy, Echinacea and vitamin C. But vitamin C should always be paired with flavonoids. So best vitamin C are things like rose hips. So Echinacea is great with rose hips, right? You can put Echinacea into your tea. Our immune boost tea is Echinacea, rose hips, elderberry, Astragalus blend. I know it used to have Ooznia in it. I think it's not anymore. I'm not sure. I love Ooznia. We'll talk about it in a minute. But this is a stimulant that is gentle and helps to build out the immune system support. So it's something you can take fairly consistently throughout those winter months. Again, any herb, and we'll talk a bit more about dosing of herbs, but any herb should be done in the same kind of idea of waxing and waning cycles. Wax on, wax off. So don't take something forever, right? Don't take it all the time. You want to take breaks. And a couple of ways to take breaks are either 5 days on in the week. If you work a regular pattern weekday, take your supplements throughout that time and then take your weekend off. Take your 2 days of the weekend off. Another way to work with. Oh, you just joined, and I think you gotta can your audio. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, go back to Echinacea. How can I do that? Go back here. Okay. Another way to take herbs like that is to do 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So either 5 days on, 2 days off is a really simple way to like remember it in a workflow. And then 3 weeks on, 1 week off is another good way. And that's a moon flow. That's like a monthly flow where it's like, I take 1 week off of this supplement and take 3 weeks on to give myself breaks. Echinacea is one. If you're not a pattern person, maybe you're more intuitive and you just take things when you remember. Well, then have it on your counter and take it every day. And then you'll probably forget a few times because that's just the way you are. So that's okay too, right? Like don't beat yourself up with systems. One thing I'm a big fan of is being flexible and being okay with not being too rigid. The more rigid we get, the more crystalline we get in our patterns. And the more crystalline we get, the more inflammation we get. And it's kind of like this. We can do this in our lives where we build these systems around ourselves, all these walls of labyrinth that put us into a certain paradigm that kind of goes, and then we're stuck in this paradigm and we have no ability to like go to the Bahamas and just have a good time with all the other cool kids because we're stuck, not that that's like, I'm not talking about the Bahamas, but you know what I mean? I mean, to just jump out of our pattern and get fun, comfortable with a new experience. So I just think it's really important to look at your ancestry, look at the way we lived on this planet for thousands of years. We had to shift it up all the time. We were always challenged with new things. Right now, we live in 70-degree temperature and we go from our car to our office, back to our car, back to our home again, to the grocery store. We don't hunt the food. We don't do like all these different types of activities. So it's up to you to rekindle that wisdom of doing multiple different things, sometimes that are stressors. Okay. Again, I keep getting on the soapbox around all these things that aren't echinacea. So there we go. Harmonic Arts has echinacea in our cold defense. It is the chief of the cold defense. I love it in the throat spray. It's a great throat herb. Even just taking an echinacea tincture and putting it in a spray bottle is a great way to take for surface level stuff that is coming up. But echinacea is also great as a tea. So we put in our immune boost tea. And that is, Astragalus, rose hips, elderberry, and echinacea. But that's more of a deep level. Like I mentioned, it's great with flavonoids and vitamin C too. So echinacea, it's a good herb. Grows in Alberta. One way I would suggest that's super awesome to work with herbs is you don't have to consume them all the time. One way to work with echinacea is this spring, if you feel called to, go to Canadian Tire or the whatever garden center you go to and ask if they have echinacea and grow yourself a plant or two. It grows super well in the environment in Alberta, and it's a really easy one to grow. And just being around it, just having an echinacea plant, one echinacea plant or a couple echinacea plants is healing for your immune system. Like, it just to be around it. And one day you might pick the seeds and eat them or make them as part of your medicine. I really believe that it's important, even if you consume it every day, to get a feel for the actual plant. Brings it all together. It really does. So even just if you ever go to an echinacea farm or whatever, check out the plant. Okay. The next one, this one's a little rarer and not easy to grow in Alberta anyway. Typically it would grow in the sort of mountain regions though, like as a forest undercover. This is Goldenseal. And I will give a little preface. Goldenseal is an endangered plant. It needs to be cultivated, and it's challenging to cultivate. It wants to be in shade-grown forests, and it takes 3 years to grow this plant. To be able to, same like echinacea, it's really 3 years before you harvest the roots, up to 5 years. But Goldenseal, really requires that too. There are a few other herbs that you can use instead. One is Coptis. Coptis is a great herb. You can also use Oregon grape. Oregon grape is an abundant herb that you'll find in the mountains, and it has something called berberini in it, which is also what's in Goldenseal. Berberini is an alkaloid that is very antibacterial and helps heal the mucous membranes. That's the point of Goldenseal. As a teacher, Goldenseal teaches us to heal the mucous membranes. Think of it as queen of the mucous membranes. Goldenseal is the most healing herb for that kind of area. And what it does is it helps us build cleaner, clearer, stronger mucous membranes it's almost like toning them. The berberini alkaloid tones the mucous membranes. So with our immune system, when you get that yellow phlegm, or when you get phlegm, what it is it's pushing that phlegm out. You actually want to make more phlegm, but what'll come after that is cleaner phlegm, kind of like cleaner mucous membranes. So you want to push exteriorly with your phlegm. Something people try to do with their immune system response is shut it down. You are far better to encourage the immune system response. When you got a cough it up, let it go, like really get it out of you, and don't swallow it back down if you can. Spit it out, in some ways. So really let that go. Remember that your body from the center is trying to push out immune response. In Chinese medicine, they call it your wei qi, which is your defensive qi. It's the qi all around you. When a pathogen gets right through there, the body is trying to push that pathogen to expel it out. So fever, amazing. Sweat it out. Cough it out. Sneeze it out. Blow your nose it out. Get it out of you in that way. And move that. So herbs that actually stimulate the mucous membranes, like Goldenseal, are really, really useful. This one's also very antimicrobial. So it's super good for putting on cuts and wounds and things like that as well. It'll kill an infection on a cut. It also is very pathogenically protective. But the only challenge I find with Goldenseal is it's strong. It's one of the strongest tasting herbs. It's like, whoa. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to feed me Goldenseal, and I hated it. was the worst. It was the worst remedy ever. It was like, not Goldenseal. Keep it away from me. It's strong flavor. And so it has a strong personality in general. And so with strong personalities, you want to mix them with gentle personalities or soothsayers, as I would say. So we like to put Goldenseal in with, like, only take it in small amounts. Its antibacterial, antimicrobial properties will eventually turn on the body, and they will start to compromise the microbiome health. And what will happen is you take Goldenseal for 3 weeks in a row, any more than that, and you're really starting to compromise your microbiome. This is an acute herb for specific indication, which is pathogens at the front door. Mucous membranes need to shed and move. That's the only time we want to take this herb in some ways. But it's one of the best. It's the king, queen, whatever you might want to say, of the mucous membranes, and really will heal that. So dosage with Goldenseal is, I like high volumes in short periods of time. Max 3 weeks, but preferably Goldenseal should be taken over a course of a week at the most. Any more than that, and I'm starting to compromise my microbiome, take a break, take some more. If your cold isn't progressing over the course of a week, well, then what you're doing isn't working. It's gotta keep progressing. And all of you have had colds before, you understand. And it's different with each cold and different types of pathogens, but often it might start with sore throat, tickle, or headache, lethargic, groggy, bad mood, kind of bad day, tired, and then big sleep, and then, feeling it, it's coming in, runny, nose, whatever, you know the whole pathology of how that starts. That's okay. When that happens, what you want to go from is like, getting this, slow down, get into that, drink that soup, open up the bottle of Goldenseal. Don't take the dropper, just start drinking it, in high volumes, not like massive, but I really believe a lot of these herbs, the problem is we don't give them enough. We don't take them enough. If it's surface level immune system and you're about to get sick, these should be taken in 5x volumes of what you probably see on the bottle. When it says 1 to 2 droppers twice a day, no. That's like 10 droppers 5 times a day. Maybe not, or like 4 drops. Maybe that's a little extreme, but like maybe 4 droppers 3 to 5 times a day during an acute response. I would take a bottle of our cold defense and I would drink it over the course of 4 days, maybe 5 days, but I'm not going to take it very often. I'm only going to take it for that one time. Now, if I'm going into a situation where, let's say my kids are going back to school and it's really crazy out there, and I know that people are dropping like flies and people are getting sick and I can see it, then I might take that cold defense as a preventative at the 1 dropper twice a day, right? At the recommended dose. But when we start to get sick, like it's all hands on deck, in my opinion. And that means bone broths, sleep, down regulate, off the stressful devices, deep breathing, taking extra herbs at the beginning of a cold, hot cold therapy, whether it's sweating, saunaing. But as soon as a cold gets further in, you want to stop that stuff. You got to stop all that surface level stuff and go for deep toning and nourishing. That's when it's like, I need the deep level. So anyway, this one is great for fighting surface level infections. I guess that's really all I needed to say, but then I went into it further. Okay. So next one is Ooznia. I love this one. This one pairs well with Goldenseal. It's why it's in our cold defense product, is because Ooznia is like the Shaolin ninja of the immune system world. It gets in there under the surface and it like cuts off the pathogen's ability to produce energy. One of the cool things about Ooznia is that it's shown it's very antibacterial, but the reason it's antibacterial is the bacteria reproduce super fast. It stops bacteria being able to convert to produce ATP, to produce energy. Basically, it cuts off the cash flow, so they can't reproduce as effectively. So rather than coming in with the big gun like Goldenseal does, or with the big weapon of like super antibacterial front, firewall, protect you from the pathogen, Ooznia comes in and just sort of like back of the neck, little paralyzed kind of position. It just stops most bacterial infections from being able to produce energy. And it's one of the most sophisticated herbs because it's not really a single organism. It's 3 different organisms put together. So Ooznia is a lichen, and lichens have this capacity to be, they show us what a symbiote really is. We are symbiotes, by the way, with our microbiome as our symbiotic relationships. But a true symbiote like Ooznia is internally, it has an algae chlorophyll producing green, but externally it has a fungal coating that is protecting it, that is keeping it safe. So it's a fungus mixed with a plant, or really an algae, but then it also has a mitochondria of a bacteria and then a bacterial biofilm. So it's actually an organism of bacteria, fungi, and algae, all living in symbiosis. And lichens cover, just for a little quick hit on this, they cover up to 60% of our planet. I mean, you might think it's forest and stuff, but all the rocks, everything's covered in lichen. Like all across the tundra, all across huge parts of the landscape of this planet is massive amounts of lichens. As far as the plant worlds, like they cover huge birds. Anyway, there's a lot more to say about lichens. I feel like they're an underutilized medicine teacher, but Ooznia is the one lichen that has become popularized. And that's because it has shown to help to do these things like soothe irritated throat, treat lungs and fungal infections, work with antibacterial qualities, bring down inflammation. It's calming down the inflammation. It's cooling and drying. So clearing stagnation and dampness and phlegm, right? So it's, whereas Goldenseal is hot in nature. So this is one that pairs well with it as a yin to the yang. And so they go really well together. If you are already, and this is another thing about energetics of herbs, if you're already in a really hot spot, you either are going to create a firewall with the Goldenseal, or you want to calm down the heat and the inflammation. So Ooznia might be a better herb for you. You may want to make it into tea. In the soup broth I had this morning or this evening for dinner, at the end of the soup, we added the thyme to get the thymol to be the surface level protection for our body. But in the bone broth itself, we added Ooznia and mushrooms, of course, because we love our reishi mushroom and chaga mushroom and turkey tail mushroom in our bone broths. But Ooznia is another great one to add into a bone broth. It's just an awesome herb that requires a bit of heat to extract because it's got that fungal layer, right? You need to break open the chitin and the lignans to really get the medicine out of it. Another way, if you harvest Ooznia, because it's in K country, is be careful that when you're out in the forest, not to pick too much Ooznia off the trees. This little piece of lichen on this picture is multiple years of growth. This could be up to like 20 years of growth, these tiny little things. Go on windy days and watch for lichen to fall down to the ground and pick it off the ground. That is the best, most sustainable way to pick lichens. And Ooznia is an easy one to key out. It has this little elastic cord in the center. So when you stretch it, it should stretch and the outside surface should break apart, but there should be a little elastic cord in the center. If you find a lichen that looks like it and it just sort of rips apart really, really easily with no elastic cord, it's not Ooznia. That's just the only thing you need to remember as far as that. But it's in Kananaskis country. It's in Hart Creek. I've seen it in all through the mountains there. So it's one you can add to your teas and your bone broths, no problem. You can get out and harvest it sustainably. Okay. I like this one a lot. I like the wisdom of a symbiote, as I'll call it. And I think that it teaches our body more than just that. It teaches our body how to be whole system integrity, how to listen to all sides of the equation, how to be there listening to understand the pathogen. Pathogens aren't here just to make our lives a pain in the butt. They're here because we've created environments for them to thrive in, which means they're telling us something that our environment's off whack. And there's a lot of truth to, I guess it was like Attack of Mars, or Attack, like, I don't know, it's like an old movie where like the aliens come from Mars. And what ends up happening is all the aliens breathe our air and our pathogens kill them and they die. And there's a huge sort of like, it's just an old movie, but what it reminded me of was you need to get sick in order to build up this immune system, in order to protect it. It's a part of your resilience. It's important to get pathogens. It's important to get sick every once in a while. Getting sick allows you to move phlegm out of the lungs, allows you to move out and tone the tissues. It's actually really a useful part of your health. So it's just not getting sick all the time that's important. Anyway, I just want to like reframe that a little bit, is that it's actually very useful to get an immune compromisation at some level, because it actually strengthens your character of self and whole system integrity. And it moves stagnation and flow. And it tells you where your stagnation is. All that is good. Okay. So antivirals, let's talk about a couple antivirals. We've got elderberry. Elderberry is the queen of the underworld, as we call. There's a lot of stories around elderberry, especially old folklore around Eldermore, the elder mother, the whole pathogens. This entire plant is poisonous other than the berries and the flower. There's all kinds of stuff around that, around how it actually is nourishing to the immune system as a doctrine of signature. Its big thing is it's packed with flavonoids. It's got lots of vitamin C, super antioxidant, like all dark berries. But it also has a lot of resveratrol in it. It's got a lot of, we call that reversidol for the hack. It helps deal as an antioxidant, super antioxidant for all kinds of pathogens and all kinds of even aging issues and on toning the skin. But it also, one of the neat things about elderberry is that it's different from a lot of antivirals. A lot of antivirals are really strong herbs. They're really potent herbs. Elderberry is really gentle. It's a really gentle herb. So it's great for kids, great for old people. I have some people that I know that I talk with that actually use elderberry syrup on their pancake during the right season. They're like, can I, one customer, she's like, is it okay if I put the elderberry syrup on my kid's pancake? Like, I'm like, yes, that's amazing. But know that elderberry is one of the ways it works for the immune system for viruses, is that it almost creates this, it's a biofilm disruptor. And this is a huge thing for antivirals. And we're learning this, especially from the whole virology that's gone on with COVID. And you look at the spike proteins and all of this stuff you can learn about if you go down the rabbit hole. And you can see that biofilm disruption is actually one of the best strategies for viruses. So what elderberry does is it literally paints the virus with a like paintball over the surface of the biofilm of it. And so the body can tag it and recognize it really easily. So rather than killing the actual virus, it just tells the immune system where the virus is. It just says, hey, this guy right there, that one, that's the one you want to get rid of. So really simply, it's gentle that way. The other thing about elderberry is it also helps to paint the cell. So elderberry comes in and helps support all the lock and key mechanisms of viruses. It'll paint the cell to protect it from from viruses getting inside. That's a huge part, not just the antioxidants in that, but its ability to turn on tagging systems and disrupt the biofilms of both our cells and viral cells. How viruses survive is they insert RNA into the cell and start to reproduce, right? And I won't go too deep into virology, but know that there's that wormhole is being opened up. And one thing I will say about viruses that I wanted to make really, really clear is that they're not the enemy in the world. They are a huge part of evolution. They're one of the most important factors of evolution. Your DNA is over at least 15 to 20% virus and was modified multiple times throughout this genetic evolution to become a human by viruses. They actually produced who you are at some level. So you are as much them as anything. So I just there is no enemy in this world. We're all trying to figure it out. And that's one thing to just know is that, yeah, viruses get a real bad rap. And even they did well before COVID, they got a super bad rap. Just know that they also create some of the infrastructure and change in the world for adaptation. Huge amounts of adaptation on this planet and evolution happen because of the viral sphere. And the two arch enemies, not arch enemies, but maybe the two that keep each other in check are viruses and bacteria. So the old war on this planet is viruses help keep bacteria in check And bacteria helps keeps viruses in check. So your microbiome is your best support for antiviral health. Your bacterial layer, that is your best support. And viruses can be good for keeping bacteria in check. It goes both ways. Okay. You can find elderberry in our immune tea, in our elderberry syrup, and our viral support. The viral support is pretty potent. I've been loving that blend lately. It's got a nice licorice finish. Got a bottle right here. Typically, I take this now when I go to the city, when I'm going into environments, a bit of just a viral support, surface level pathogen protector for me. And I like that. That's been one of my safeguard teachers in the last little while. Okay. And I think the light cellar has viral support. OSHA. This is another super virus herb. Legusticum grows in the Kootenays. It grows in the high mountains. It grows into interior BC. It's a beautiful plant. It's a powerful plant. The root is like and when you take it, it's full of phenolic compounds, and it opens up the lungs and it aerates the lungs in a way. Deep antiviral. Also on the endangered plant list though. So be careful with too much OSHA. We don't need a lot of it. We put it in our cold defense. One of the best things it can do is really just move stagnation. That's what this one does. It's known as bear root, and often it was dug up by the bears in the spring when they were stagnant. They would dig up the OSHA and eat the OSHA root to move stagnation, to clear the stagnant energy. So OSHA is, as a herb, if there's stagnation in the body, that's where if it's getting congested, if the lymph system is like all inflamed, or the lungs are super thick with catarrh, or there's clotting or any of that kind of stuff, OSHA is the herb. Warming. So, again, looking I don't want to spend much time on talking about COVID, but one of the biggest pathologies around it is clotting and clotting systems, and warming up that area and moving that out. Herbs like OSHA and elecampane are super tonics for stagnation in those kind of areas. So really, really important herb that way. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and it's just really good for moving stagnation. But I do realize that we only have about 6.5 hours left of this 7-hour webinar, so I should keep moving. I'm actually going to burn through all these. I think we only booked in 1.5 hours. So, and remember how I told you about those ultradian rhythms? You only really have 1.5 hours of attention before I've totally lost you. So we're going to keep moving. In general, OSHA is found in our lung and cough syrup, and it's in our cold defense. I'm going to talk about deep immune herbs for a minute. Astragalus is my favorite. This one grows really well in Alberta as well. We had about 25 Astragalus plants on the farm on Chiron Herb Farm in Springbank when we lived there. Really cool plant. Looks like licorice. Grows easily in that part of the world. So something you could grow in your own yard if you want. This is one of the deep lung supportive herbs. It's a deep level immune herb. It does gently boost the immune system. It's one of my favorite ones to add into bone broths. So if you're into doing broths and that kind of thing, Astragalus, so good. It's like tasty and it's deep nourishment, great in bone broth. So as Ooznia and Astragalus were both in our broth. And I think a bit of, I think we used like a red belted polypore and a tinder conch in the one we did this time. I didn't use reishi this time. I know that. But often I do Astragalus reishi. That's just a great combination. Astragalus reishi goji berry or Astragalus reishi rosehip, perfect combination. Adding the intelligence for deep level, but also supporting it by backing it up with flavonoids. And if you can, if you're doing a blend like that, add some ginger or something to warm up the spices. So Astragalus reishi rosehip ginger. That's amazing. That right there, great tea. And if it's not rose hips, maybe it's elderberries or something with flavonoids. This one is a protector of the cells, so it protects against free radical damage. It also has a whole lot of just good polysaccharides in it, similar to what are in the mushrooms, right? You get a lot of really high functioning immunomodulating polysaccharides found in Astragalus. So that in itself is really, really important. And yeah, it just tastes good, easy to grow. You can get it in Chinatown, you can get it at the light cellar, you can get it at all kinds of places. Add it to your broths and soups and teas. Yeah, I know we have it in our immune depth. So our immune depth tincture is much more about deep level, whereas cold defense is a surface level immune system. So it's kind of like I wouldn't want to put this necessarily in my surface level immune support. We do put it into our immune tea, but that's kind of like to be able to be for both of those. But traditionally, I would use Astragalus only when there's deep level immune stuff, or when I've had a cold for a week and I still am sick, Astragalus time. Or if I want to just support the body in general, and I'm not sick, Astragalus time. Elecampane, this is one of my very favorite herbs. I just love this one. It grows, it's in the Compositae sunflower family. So it grows like a big sunflower, or actually a bunch of little sunflowers, but it's like 9 feet tall. The sucker's huge. And the roots of elecampane, are they ever one of the most potent respiratory tonics? I find them to be the best at toning the lungs. So if there's a lot of congestion and inflammation in the lungs, elecampane is the herb of choice, in my opinion. It's a deep lung tonic. If you have someone who has asthma or allergies or shortness of breath, an elecampane cleanse is just really good for them. I have a few friends who get a lot of allergies in the spring. We make sure they do elecampane for a good 2 weeks. A friend of mine with asthma swears by this. It's like his go-to herb now. He's always trying to hit me up for a bottle of elecampane. He's like, oh, can you get me some of that elecampane stuff again? And it works so well. It's just so good for toning the lungs. But it is that like bronchitis, chest congestion, deep colds and coughs. It is a bacterial infection fighter, but its main thing is its deep congestion. And the roots, like it's an easy one to grow in Alberta as well. So you can totally grow this herb around you. The roots are gnarly and they're full of phenols, these like spicy compounds. It's warming. This is a warming spice that warms up and breaks up congestion and is a tonic in the true form. Now I know in like sort of, I'll say superfood herbalism, Chinese tonic herbalism, we call everything a tonic, but this one really is a lung tonic. Like it tones the tissues and strengthens them very, very effectively. So it's a true lung tonic. Okay, elecampane is in our lung love tea. It's in our lung and cough syrup. And our lung love tea, just for a different sort of hit, is not just for when you have a deep bronchitis. I find a lot of people who maybe are smokers or have lung congestion or even allergies in general or shortness of breath do really well with this tea. I've seen a few people work with it even when they go into high altitude areas. And some of you, if you transition, Alberta is quite high altitude. You might find that you breathe better when you have a little bit of these lung congesting herbs in your setup. My father takes the lung and cough syrup every time he goes on a plane. He has a weird allergy to airports after 30 years of flying around the planet all the time. Literally, he starts to get this little tickle, this kind of cough where it's very shallow and it's just like, and it's not a real cough. It's not progressive. It's doing nothing. It's just this tickle. The lung love, he's like, wow, this stuff works so well the lung syrup, sorry, which is almost the same formula of herbs. One's just a syrup and easy to work with in a different way, in the tea. But he says it works really well as a sipping cordial for him whenever he goes like that. And I found that to be, for me too, I like syrups as my own personal sipping cordial. I prefer, versus regulating dosage with a spoon, to buy a bottle of a syrup like that and not share it with my family. It's my little sipping cordial and then they can have their own or whatever, but to like literally have it as my personal medicine, taking a little sip, which is maybe 5 milliliters out of a 250 ml bottle every so often. I find to be more intuitive and works really well. Okay, turkey tail. This is another antiviral. Maybe you didn't know that. Turkey tail is good for viruses. It is one of the best ones for hepatitis C in the liver. It's great for really robust immune support. It's one of my favorite go-tos for tumor system and cancer treatment and support with chemotherapy, because it helps body recovery rate up to 400% better recovery rate from going through chemotherapy. There's a PSK and PSP, two polysaccharides in turkey tail, have been used classically in Japan for the last 3 decades now as part of the treatment strategy for everyone going through chemotherapy. There's 3 decades now of history of using this consistently. It's covered by their government there now. It's huge in that way. But its other big thing around immune support is not just these polysaccharides. It's that there's all kinds of polyphenols in turkey tail too. And it's got some antiviral compounds there. So you need turkey tail fruiting body. Just as a quick hit between fruiting body and mycelial parts of the mushroom, the mycelial parts really do work with having good polysaccharides in them. Lots of polysaccharides in the mycelium, but the fruiting body is where you get all of the terpene groups and all the polyphenols and the wider diversity of chemistry that really works as antioxidants, that works as antivirals, that works to support proper health, cellular health in general. Cardiovascular support is always in the fruiting bodies of the mushrooms. Sexual, reproductive, and endocrine and nervous system support is often in the fruiting bodies more. So anyway, turkey tail, we have it in our 5 mushroom blend as well as our viral. You can also get turkey tail separately. I like our turkey tail extract, the powder, because it's instant and you can put it right into soups, put it right into tea, put it right into oatmeal. I like it in that kind of thing. I've been putting turkey tail, and I usually do turkey tail chaga if I do coffee or if I do a roasted root tea or something like that. I love topping it up with my mushroom powders. Find that to be really awesome. It's another one that's in our antiviral blend. So I'm taking turkey tail right now. I'll have a little. Okay. Again, I just don't have as much time to talk about each one of these herbs because we're already at 1 minute to the hour of our before we turn into pumpkins, and I will go a little bit over. So I apologize for anybody right now. I want to apologize if you have to leave and you had like cut off at that exact time. I'm going to take another 15-20 minutes to just finish through this. And what I am going to ask, we're going to send you out an email, or Malcolm is, I think, going to send you out an email with all of those, all of the things. If you have, I'll talk to Malcolm about this later, but I'm hoping to be able to answer some of your questions in an email format. That's what I'm hoping to be, because I don't think we have time for email or for question and answer based on a few more slides I have to go through. So, yeah, Malcolm, does that work if we send them out a thing? And if there's any like deep level questions, I'm going to answer about 20 questions in that format. So, okay. Malcolm's going to, if your question is redundant or somebody else asked a similar question, he's going to paraphrase it. And we'll send out a second email. Is that okay, Malcolm? Can we do that?
Oh yeah, totally. That works. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's things that you talked about, write down the question you wanted to hear tonight, and we'll get to that. I promise. We'll try. Anyway, we'll get 20 questions answered at the end of that. But I'm just going to go and try to finish off some of these slides for the next like 5-10 minutes. And then we'll see where we can get to that. So you guys know chaga, king of the mucus or king of the mushrooms. I don't know if it's king or queen or what that is. That whole thing is kind of, again, that's old world paradigm. That's boomer talk now. This is the transmorphiant goddess hero of the mushroom world. And what's so cool about chaga is it's another one of these symbiotes, like the lichens. Chaga symbioses with the birch tree, and it becomes the immune system of the birch in some ways. Chaga mushrooms or trees with chaga actually live longer than trees without chaga. There's plenty of pathogens in the birch world, things like birch polypore and tinderconk and all of these. Chaga actually prevents the birch tree from getting those infections. So it's really useful that way. So it imparts that kind of wisdom on us. It's super antioxidant. It's full of polyphenols like the just like the turkey tail. It has some really good terpene profile in the black outer part of chaga, and that's the part where all the terpenes are, and that's really antiviral. So power medicine there. That's a really good one to work with. I like it as a tea. I don't think you should drink too much chaga though. You want to take breaks from chaga. There have definitely been some chagavores who have had, I'll say, kidney compromisation from like extreme chagophiling. So if that's you, take a break, all right? This is not one that you just take every day. And if you are, know that you have to take just the orange corky bit all the time. The terpene groups, just like the Goldenseal, is bad for the immune system after 7 to 30 days of taking it consistently. It starts to kill the microbiome or be antibacterial against the good guys. Chaga all the time can be hard on the system. So I like to do chaga in stints. I do chaga tea is on the stovetop because you can rebrew this 3 to 5 times. It's on the stovetop from September till October at my house. Then we take a break, and then it's on the stovetop sometime in November through December. And this is definitely around like Christmas season. I like to have chaga around because there's all kinds of guests and people coming, and it's antiviral and it's great tea and good hosting medicine. And then in that spring cycle, it's on the stovetop at our house in February, where we're just transitioning from February to March, that last cold and flu season, when people are just starting to get sick again. They think they're over it, and then boom, another cold comes through. That's when chaga's on the stove at our house. So I'm going to just quickly go through. Tinctures are my favorite way to work with herbs in this format. The reason is they're really easy for you to work with. They're super effective in small doses, and you can dose them in different ways. I'm not going to talk about all the benefits of alcohol here. I'm just going to move on to dosing levels. But just know that the one benefit I want to mention is alcohol drives the medicine deep into the system without the need for digestion. And that means that even if you're digestively impaired, the concentration and effectiveness of administering the herbs is deep into the system. All right, so you don't want to take too much tinctures all the time, but you can dose them in hero doses, like I mentioned already tonight, of the like 4 to 8 milliliters, sipping cordial on your cold defense tincture for a short period of time in an acute situation. The traditional tincture dosage is 2 to 3 droppers full. And a dropper full is really only a half a dropper full. At the most, that's about 1 to 3 milliliters. And then drop doses, I want to mention, I really love this concept, and I just want to give you this hit of take 1 drop, roll it around your tongue like a sommelier, let your spirit body mingle with the spirit of the herbs for a minute. Come down into this, what I'll call this is the empathic dosage, and it has a non-physiological effect, but it'll affect you at a deep level. The lower the dosage, the more acute your sensory perception has to become to feel the medicine. And so the drop therapy starts to bring on this kind of ethereal dose, it's called. And it's really useful to have a drop dose, and then 30 seconds later, 20 seconds later, take your physiological dose. But sommelier it for a second, just roll it around, feel into the personality of the herbs and the medicine you're working with. This is highly effective at tuning you to the medicine. And that's all in part of the way it works. Okay. Syrups, sipping cordials, or shots. I really love syrups in soda water. So you can totally do any of these syrups in soda water. 1 ounce of syrup to a glass of soda water makes a nice cordial. And I think that's it. I did it. I made it through the slides. So I know that there might be some questions, and I breezed over a few of these herbs. This is meant to be just an intro level. My hopeful intention was to give you a couple of ideas. I call them heart hooks or brain hooks around how to look at your immune system. The most important part of this talk tonight is to understand that your immune system is a much bigger picture. It is not just these herbs that can support you. It is looking at nourishing yourself at the deepest level of like taking good care of yourself. You are the adaptogen. You are the healer. Live within the cycles, live within the flow. The seasonality, attunement is one of the best things you can do to align yourself with vibrant health and just vibrant living. Your microbiome is your home. You are an ecosystem. You are a rainforest. Don't be a desert. All right. Live long and pro spore, as they say. Thank you for joining me tonight. I know I ran through that really quick at the end, but I just want to leave you with like a deep breath. Meditation is the medicine. Evening rituals, Shavasana time, down regulating. The season has shifted now from doer mode in the summer into receiver mode in the winter. So receive the self, embody the spirit. Don't let psychic attack from my whole like thing about the Abbotsford and the apocalypse on the island where I can't even get gas take my emotional and psychic chi and compromise my immune system. The most important thing we can do is to nourish and listen into the body, and to receive at this time of the year is to kind of go deeper and peel off the onion. The last thing I'll give you, winter solstice is a really important time for reclaiming the sun. And so set your intentions, think about your intentions between now and winter solstice. How are you going to frame your next year? What are you going to do? And really, this is the time for the deep work. Right now is that time for deep, deep work. It's deep immune work, nourishing at that level. So you can go through the next year and seasonally create the most vibrant self through using the seasons. Okay, thank you for joining me. I'm going to pass it over to our host, Malcolm, and just really appreciate you and your time and taking the time to be with me tonight.
All right, amazing. That was great. That was a deep dive in how to show up, how to be in this world, live in a way that supports us beyond. I love how you took it beyond taking the mushrooms and the herbs. I know maybe some folks weren't expecting that, but I think that was true value, true wisdom. And like you say, we got to set that foundation. It doesn't matter how much echinacea we take, or herb XYZ. We got to have that foundation. Once we have that, then we can build from there. And you really did give us a lot of great insight and strategy. So yeah, thank you again. And for everybody that is tuning in live, please do post your comments down below. You can also email those to me as well, and we'll get Yarrow to answer those. And I'll be sending the recording plus answers to any questions. I mean, first 20. So make sure you get yours in. We'll send that up as a little follow-up. So thank you again, everyone, for showing up, being on the call here, and most especially for Yarrow, and then for Tasha from Harmonic Arts, who helped set this up as well. Really appreciate everybody involved.
And the light seller, man, just like you guys are just a light at the end of that little tunnel of just a beacon. So really appreciate you continually adding value to the community in such a deep and rich and meaningful way. So thank you for everything you guys do. And I didn't talk deep about so many herbs. And the reason is that you can honestly, the internet is your database. You can find anything you want. It's knowing what to look for. That's your job. And that's the adaptogen that you are. So just that's part of that reminder, is knowing where to look, knowing how to co-create that experience. So that's part of the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And building your own knowledge and your own wisdom. I mean, sure, you can kind of memorize things and, spew it all out. But, I think you really demonstrated tonight what it's like to, build a cumulative, developed, acquired wisdom versus just, book knowledge, right? And we're only going to get there when we set our life and our lifestyle up straight up, and we use our own kind of powers of mind, powers of internet, do that research, and then experience, right? I love how you shared about the drop dosing and really taking these tinctures on all these different levels, interacting with the plants. So yeah, lots of great.
The biggest disconnect we're seeing in the world right now, I call it nature deficit disorder, but it's just like, it's so easy for us to get caught up in our lives. It really is. It's just really, we need that reminder, or I need that reminder. And so I'm reminding you because I need the reminder too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Have a great night. And we'll see you again soon in person or our next call another time.
And we'll make sure you all get the slides as well. So, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Great. Ciao for now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Prue.